We will now go directly from your presentation to the first panel, Prevent and Protect. To lead this panel, we have asked Åshild Eidem to be the moderator. Åshild has a background as a journalist, reporting from the Middle East, and like other moderators and panelists here today, she has a mix of background with reporting, journalism, but also with promoting freedom of speech through NGO work, in your case with Norwegian PEN. So please come forward, Åshild.
So in this panel, we will focus on good preventive measures. And together with us, we have Jean-Pierre Ilboudo, who started working as a journalist in his home country, Burkina Faso, in the 1970s. He has a PhD in Information and Communication Sciences from the University of Bordeaux, and also spent 15 years at the UN World Food and Agricultural Organization in Rome. Since then, he has worked within journalism and communications across Africa in countries such as Ethiopia, Senegal, and Cameroon. He is currently the head of Unesco in Namibia, and next month he will have the same position in Congo. And Ahmedur Rashid Chowdury, also known as Tutul, he is an author and publisher from Bangladesh. As a teenager, he started a literature magazine called Shudh Hashar, in which he published texts on topics such as gender equality, democracy development, and secularism. He later started a publishing house with the same name, Shudh Hashar, which became one of the most important publishing houses in Bangladesh. He published books on controversial topics such as homosexuality, atheism, science, psychology, and criticism of religion. And this nearly cost his life. 3 years ago, he was attacked in his office and barely survived and was hospitalized. And a few months later, he came to Norway with the help of ICORN, together with his family. He is currently living in the Norwegian city Skien, from where he still runs his magazine. Ahmedur has received the Pinter International Writer of Courage Award, selected by Margaret Atwood, the Dairy Labour International Freedom to Publish Award, and in 2 weeks he will receive the Osietzky Prize awarded by the Norwegian PEN for insistingly promoting freedom of expression in spite of the threats and attempt on his life. So, because the challenges that journalists face in different countries are so different, I would like you to start by just describing what the main challenges are in the countries where you have your experience. So maybe you will start explaining differences in different African countries.
Good morning to you, and I'm very glad to be here with you. Thank you to Article 19, inviting me to be here. And I would like to start by commending the conclusion of the Minister of Foreign Affairs. And I was so impressed because if all the ministers of foreign affairs in the world could say that to the journalists, do your job and we will do ours in protecting you, we'll be solving all the problems. And I hope she will be our champion to promote this approach in the world. The second thing is about the presentation of Article 19. I think it's an original approach, you know, those 5 trends. Because if you go through ours, the Unesco's one, if you go to the Reporters Without Border and the others, you won't find the digital as one of the trends, because this is very important. That's the future. You won't find also the civic space. And when I was saying that, I was thinking about Jürgen Habermas, about the public space, which is very important today also. And I think that the third innovation within those 5 trends is the issue of transparency, which is not every time there. The media issue is there. And I think that I will commend that also and congratulate you for that. And I'm waiting for this presentation or this report to be available on the 15th of December. So quickly, in our report, the global report of UNESCO, our figures are 530 journalists killed from 2012 to 2016. And you will see that for this year, there's upscale of 57%. And it's a pity to notice that this was already in May 2018 when we were celebrating the World Press Freedom Day. Among the 530 journalists who were killed between 2012 and 2016, and here I'm going to the African perspectives, 73 were from sub-Saharan Africa, an average of 2 deaths per week, and 2012 was the worst year for African journalists being killed, because after that it has decreased a bit. As Article 19 was also noticing it, the female journalist also was attacked, and then the figures are 5 killed in 2012 and 2016, 10, then it's doubled. And as the minister was saying, 9 in 10 cases remained unpunished. The increased threat also on digital security is why I think that this trend is very important for the future. It includes cyber attacks, surveillance, phishing, intimidation, harassment online, and those harassment online, especially against female journalists. In this context, member states of the United Nations become more and more reactive between 2013 and 2017 to the requirement of UNESCO in the field of the safety of journalists and the issue of impunity. I can say that another figure is that 110 countries has been able to adopt legislation about freedom of expression. But if you compare these 110 countries, you will see that 57 are not able to implement them because of lack of political will and other issues. And within Africa, 27 countries among 54 has been able also to adopt some legislation about the right to information. And this is very important because usually in Africa we think that access to information is only for media, but I think it's for a normal citizen, for him to have access to information about education, nutrition, agriculture, to make informed decisions. If in 2013, only 30% of member states were giving attention to this issue of safety of journalists and the issue of impunity, in 2017, 74% of the member states paid more attention to the safety of journalists and the issue of impunity, contributing to the implementation of the UN Plan of Action on this issue of safety and impunity. And this UN Plan of Action is very important for us. We are trying to make sure that we're implementing it. The minister was saying it was approved in 2012. Our colleague here was complaining about, let's say, the fact that we are talking too much about international regulation and other things, but yes, we need to implement them, and I will come back on that now. Okay, to prevent the exposure of journalists to attacks, we need first, and here I agree with you, Thomas, because this normative framework, including resolutions, declarations, Article 19 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, treaties, the UN Plan of Action, we need to continue the work of raising awareness about it. How many people knows about those resolutions in Africa, for instance, where more than half of population doesn't speak French or English or Spanish or international languages? Are we translating them into national languages for them to know? Are we using community radio to discuss those issues? And even, let's take the group of those who are so-called educated like me. How many people knows about it? Not enough. Then this is important. We cannot say it's theoretical, it's at another level. We're not in the limbo or the nirvana, but we need really to make sure that those resolutions and decisions are really, let's say, promoted. The role of the member state, and that is also to encourage and take active role in the prevention of attacks against journalists and take prompt actions in response to attacks by establishing national emergency mechanism with different stakeholders can adopt. So this one is what we are going to do very soon, I think the 26th of November in Addis Ababa. We have a big meeting there, and I will come back on that later, with the national mechanism for safety of journalists. It requires a multi-stakeholder approach that will provide cooperation between state institutions and media organizations, create a safe and enabling environment for journalists to perform their work, address serious violation of journalists' rights and media freedom in general, report to the communities and to the large public any threat done to journalists. And this national mechanism will be a kind of observatory for the safety of journalists, and we need it. It's why we need to move now from the legislation, the resolutions, to a very concrete action that will be started in the 26th of November in Addis Ababa. So let me tell you the composition of this national mechanism that we're going to set up in Addis Ababa. Human rights activists has to be there, and I know that, for instance, Article 19 got one in Africa, in Senegal. I know Fatou Ndiaye, and she's someone who can really be part of that for us. NGOs and CSOs, representative of professional association and media practitioners, and also the media trade unions. I was part of the media trade union, let's say, Secretary General in my country, in Burkina, in the 80s, and I think it's important to defend the moral and material interests of the journalists. Representative of School of Journalism and Professional Training Centers, representative of traditional leaders. This is very important for them to be part of that. Representative of religious leaders also. The Judiciary Council, the Minister of Justice, Minister in charge of communication, only 2 ministries among all those stakeholders. The media regulatory and self-regulatory bodies, and the representative of the United Nations country team. It's an indicative list. We can add also the artist, we can sing about that, we can make many things about that. You can also add the MPs. Let me go quickly to conclude my thing. And the second one is this Addis Ababa resolution on the creation of the African Union Working Group on the safety of journalists. I was talking about the national mechanism. Now I'm going to the continental level. This working group is very important to us because it will allow also, let's say, the regional communities like SADC in Southern Africa, ECOWAS in West Africa to be part of this group. And if we can engage the African Union member countries to take care of this issue as they have decided themselves last May, it will be also an asset for the prevention and the safety of journalists and the issue of impunity. And here you will see, as I'm going through now, the role of this working group of the African Union. And the last proposal to make sure that we are preventing is to have the judiciary with us. During the celebration of the World Press Freedom Day 2018, it was decided to make sure that we are training the judges on freedom of expression issues, Article 19, because some of them, but it's not easy. But if we can train them, if we can have them with us, when they are judging issues related to so-called wrongdoing by journalists, they will also be open and sensitive in what we are doing. Those is, to summarize, I would say, let's set up this national mechanism to monitor and report. Let's make sure that we are having also at the regional level and the continental level these working groups, and let's have the judiciary with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jean-Pierre. Ahmedur, in Bangladesh, some of the main challenges, they come both from the state level, but also from non-state actors. And in 2013, a group of Islamic fundamentalists submitted a hit list of 84 bloggers, atheists, and free thinkers to the Ministry of Interior in Bangladesh. And people who were on that list were brutally attacked and killed. And at this time, you started receiving threats yourself. You went to the police. What did they tell you?
Thank you very much. Actually, I'm the practical example the Bangladesh freedom of expression situation. I am a book publisher and an editor of literary and political magazine. And I published some controversial books, like homosexuality and other some critical book. So I got threatened from the fundamentalist group, and they gave a lot of threat by offline and online. So, and when I got the threat from several groups, I went to the police station and I talked with the police officer. So they gave me a suggestion that time. Okay, you can stop your this kind of work. You can stop this kind of publication and writing. And otherwise, you can move to the another country. So I got suggestion from our law and enforcement. And but I'm lucky because I have some journalist friend. So after that, I went to again police station with my one of powerful journalist friend, and they took my general diary, and they ensured me, okay, we will give you all of the protection of your office and of your personal life. But unfortunately, I didn't get it, and unfortunately, 2015's October, 31st October, some extremists was attacked in my office, and they tried to kill me, and luckily I survived. So actually, the Bangladeshi in Bangladesh, free thinking, freedom of expression is threatened by both sides, extremist group and government also, because I believe if don't any understanding or negotiation between extremist and government, so maybe police gave me the protection, but they didn't do it. And also, you know, another writer, I was also publisher of his book. His name is Ananta Bijoy. And when he got threat, and he also went to the police station, and police gave the same suggestion. And after 2 or 3 months, he was attacked by brutally, and he killed. So a lot of blogger and free thinker and writer attacked like that from 2013 and still now. It's continuing. Last few months ago, one of the free thinker, and he was also the progressive publisher, he was attacked and he was killed. So, and this is the one side, it's blogger and writer and publisher. And also journalists are also actually under threatened in Bangladesh. Still now, Shagor and Rooney, their husband and wife, they were killed in their home, their house, in front of their small boy. But still now, this small boy didn't get justice. And recently, last August, in Bangladesh had a schoolboys procession movement against fitnessless transport and licenseless driver. But that time, some journalists went to take photo and take news. But we have seen police and the government party's youth wings wear a helmet. They attacked to the journalist. And still now, a police or court didn't take any case against of these activities. And you know, one of the renowned press photographer, Shahidul Alam, he gave some statement on Facebook in Al Jazeera. And for that, actually, he was arrested. And still now, he didn't get bail just for that. And recently, another civil society member, and also he was a journalist, and he was also arrested. It's a very silly matter. So everybody are actually now under threat. Another civil society member, and he always try to say for democracy and for democratical culture. But government is not directly their person. They gave a lot of case against him, like this person stealing my fish, stealing my fruits from my tree. That's kind of silly matter. So this is the situation of Bangladesh, of freedom of expression, or journalism, or free thinking, or writing.
But when the repression is so strong, where can you start? What should be the most important first steps to make to protect generalists? What can be steps that are actually possible to make?
Yeah, actually, general people they are very friendly to journalists or writer or others, but political man and the government, especially, if they do not practice the democratical culture, so how can you or how can anybody protect the journalist or free thinker or anything, or protect keep the freedom of expression? So I think the government should become a more democratic, more cultural, and they have to commitment to freedom of expression, to human rights, and everything. So actually, I think the situation will be improved.
Have you, in African countries where you have worked, managed to actually make an impact on governments? Do you have any good examples of what have actually worked?
Yeah, many examples. What we are trying to do in most of the African countries is to have what you call media law reform. If you don't create an enabling environment for the journalists to work and to have access to information, is difficult. This is one of the main activities of UNESCO within all the African countries, the media law reform. The other thing is about the salaries of the journalists. There's miserable salaries in Africa. The money is even not enough to put some petrol in the motorbike and go to present things. Then journalists are vulnerable and easily corruptible because, you know, the brown envelopes are given because they need also money to take care of their family, to take care of, you know, the schooling of the children, to go to pharmacy and buy things. And this is a big issue that we are trying our best to have laws. It's not only about the press freedom, freedom of expression, bill about access to information. It's about also the obligation for the owner of the media house to pay a minimum salary to the journalists. Those are really good examples that I can give. For instance, in the Gambia, you're talking about the Gambia here. I was also able to, when I was working at the regional office of UNESCO for West Africa, Sahel, I went there to craft a media program, let's say project, funded by European Union for €1.5 million euros. It was not easy because Jami was there. We started with Article 19 together. Finally, it has taken time to have this project, and today journalists can have training about, you know, code of conduct, ethics. They can have also technical trainings about, you know, writings, editing, producing nice radio and TV programs. And I think that this is something also, an asset that I can also tell about.
And what about the civil society? Can you give some concrete examples of projects?
Without the civil society organizations and NGOs, we cannot succeed. They are our partners of choice. We have to take them with us. We have to make sure that they are at the ground level working to make sure that they can mobilize the communities for the journalists. And they are doing it very well in most of the countries. I will take my country in Burkina Faso. 31st of October, 4 years ago, 1 million, I said 1 million people went out to chase the President of the Republic who wanted to modify the constitution and stay again after 27 years of power, where he has installed corruption and all kind of wrongdoing in this country. And this is the role of social media. It's why now, if you look at what is going on in Africa, when there are elections somewhere, they will cut immediately the internet for people not to communicate. But in Burkina, I don't know how the civil society was organized. They was organized by sector in the capital city, and what do you call it? The WhatsApp, the messenger was working well, and then they was able to mobilize all those people to go and said no to the revision of the constitution. And I think that civil society are very, very important to us.
When you hear this, do you have any examples of what journalists and bloggers have done themselves to promote freedom of expression in Bangladesh?
A lot of bloggers are doing this. I cannot give any specific example. Actually, I cannot remember any name, but I know so many bloggers and writer. They are doing this work.
Can I say something about the bloggers? I think it's important also for you to know that UNESCO has decided that the protection of journalists is about online and offline journalists. We are taking care of those online journalists because it's very important. It was decided even in 2010 to start working on that, and today it's an asset at UNESCO level to make sure that the bloggers and the online journalists are protected at the same level as the journalists offline.
What about, I mean, because when journalists are put in danger, it's also a danger for the sources. How can you work to protect the sources of the journalists?
I think that a good journalist coming from a good school know that he cannot, disclose the sources of his information. it's what they taught me in Bordeaux when I was finishing my studies some 35 years ago. They taught me that if I have to die, I have to die, but never give the source of the information. But, okay, you have to choose. It's a choice, and I know that most of my colleagues will never disclose their sources. So to protect the sources, it's also a question of sensitization also. If you can inform the communities about the possibility for them not to be harassed, not to be arrested, not to be intimidated because they have given the source. And we have even some example right now. 2 months ago in Nigeria, they caught a lady journalist that she refused. You will never know the source of her information. They caught her for 3 months, and then finally they released her. I think it's important for the communities to know that they are also part of the process. It's why we are also promoting modules on a curriculum called Media Information Literacy. The media information literacy will give to the community, even the schoolboys, a critical prism about what is information and how information is let's say, conceived and produced. And there you have also a part, a module about the internet governance, and also a part about the sources of information. And we are trying our best to train the teachers at the primary school level about the media information literacy. And also Deutsche Welle Academy, for instance, in Namibia, is working with the communities now on the media information literacy. We are in the formal sector, they are in the informal sector, and we are collaborating very well on that. Yeah.
When you're working to implement all these measures, what are the main challenges that you face?
The challenges are about the government. You know, they would like perhaps to corrupt you, to make sure that you are not doing what it's not good for them. It's about also the fact that intimidation are there. They would like to, they can say, okay, if you continue like that, we can declare you PNG. You know what is PNG? Persona non grata. When I was in Addis Ababa, 2010, we were celebrating the World Press Freedom Day. And there was 2 groups of journalists, one with the power of the government, and the other one which is in opposition. And I said, no, we cannot have only one voice. Both of them will talk. The minister said yes. Then when we're in the venue, the group of the government was monopolizing the floor after 2 hours, and I said, no, you need to give it to them. Then the other one said, we are hammering the press freedom here. It went to CPG in New York. New York called me, and then the government said, okay, you are here since 6 months. You're going to leave the country in 48 hours. And I wrote to Paris, and then we started negotiation, and finally I stayed there for 2.5 years. This is also something, because you need to know how to engage the governments. Tact diplomacy, and it's where you can really be threatened by them, because they consider that we are there, we have the country host agreement with them, we cannot tackle issues, sensitive issues like press freedom, but it's our role to do that. I don't have any problem to do that, and I will do it till I can be declared PNG. Why not?
I'd also like to talk a little bit about the challenges that female journalists face. What role do female journalists and bloggers play in Bangladesh?
In Bangladesh, actually, the male and female both are in subject of freedom of expression. They are facing the same problem. But as a female journalist or any other profession, they are facing some extra problem, sexual harassment and etc. And also the law and order situation is in Bangladesh, it's not good. So any woman, if the garments worker or journalist or doctor, anybody, actually she cannot move alone confidently in day or night. So this is a common problem for women. But gradually in Bangladesh, the women empowerment is increasing. So a lot of people.
How?
Actually, it's a power of the people. It's and also a lot of NGO working in Bangladesh. They have some contribution for women empowerment.
What exactly do NGOs and like the UN plan, what specifically do you do in order to strengthen the female journalist situation?
Okay, we have these gender media sensitive indicators that we are implementing in the countries. Two sets of indicators. One is about the position of female journalists in the media houses. Are they chief editors, director of publications, or not? And why they are not at this position of the same degree as a man, for instance? Okay, we are trying to sensitize the director of national radio and TV and media houses, not when they are going for maternity, to keep the position for them to come back, because usually when they go, they will lose the position and then it's a problem. The second set is about the stereotypes of let's say, the way the female are treated in the media, radio, TV, and so. We are doing content analysis to show them that this male domination, the male perception, the male vision is there, not considering the women, knowing that in Africa, 80% of our domestic economy is produced by women. Without women, you cannot survive in Africa. There's no way. But are they having the good positions? We are also trying to tell the male, the dominant, to be gender sensitive, because gender sensitivity is a big problem in Africa. How can you come from your work and then you will sit and ask your wife, give me a bottle of water or give me a bottle of beer? Go to the fridge and open it yourself and take the beer. You never go to the kitchen, you never cut onions, you never, you don't help. I think gender issue is about sharing tasks. And this is also something that we are doing with our education system. We are trying to start at kindergarten level, because I think that in Norway and those countries, they are starting there, where they know that what a young boy can do, a young girl can do. And if you don't start there, you will grow people that will think they are the chiefs. They are the males, they can dominate, they can do and what. And the gender-based violence is there in Namibia, for instance. It's the highest level in Africa. I've never seen that in my life. They're talking about passion killings. I say, if I'm passionate, I won't kill. I will love. How can you kill someone with passion killing? What's passion killing? You'll find it every time there. And this is also something that the government of Namibia is working hard on that to make sure that they can mitigate it and reduce it, because we cannot continue with things like that. But in our all programs, in UNESCO program, you will find this gender sensitivity, gender responsivity, because the DG of UNESCO has two priorities, Africa and gender. And you cannot have a project document without a gender, let's say, component to be approved by the highest level of UNESCO. This is important. To come back now to the female journalists, we need to promote them, because we don't have too many girls and women going to the profession, especially now with those killings, those harassment. The harassment are there. They don't talk about it, huh? But if you can have confidence with them, they will tell you exactly. The chief editor will say, if you don't sleep with me, you won't go to cover international things like that. It was possible for them to say that. And we need also to fight against this kind of abusive position of the male chief editors or directors. If not, we won't have many women embracing our profession.
We will soon open up to questions from the audience, but first I'd like to ask you one more question each. You told me that writers that are still in Bangladesh, they have switched topics. They don't write as much on controversial topics anymore, but more about love stories, like undangerous issues. But you still run your magazine, and I wonder, how do you work with promoting freedom of expression from Norway?
You know, I told many times, my publication or editing and other activities, actually, it was almost my passion. So, you know, the passion always poking. So, when I came here in Norway, and in Bangladesh, my publication house and all activities are stopped for security purpose. So actually, in my inside, I feel something is poking me to restart my work. So I came here 2016 January, and 2017 January, I started my magazine online based. So yeah, it's a very it's one kind of struggle actually. So for me, because in Norway I'm a new person and I don't know anybody, and also I contact with my the Bangladeshi writer and friends, but they are actually not interested. Maximum, they are not interested to write on my magazine now because they are also feel some insecurity. So, but I try to continue write email and message and to like today I introduced to you. So tomorrow I actually you will get a mail from me so for writing. So actually it's one kind of disturbing, I think. Somebody here feels like that. So but I doing this one continuously. So from some person to person kindly responds my email and my asking, and they send some writing. So by this way, actually, I could pass this last 1 year and 6 months already, and I published already 10th issue of my magazine, and I also published some ebooks also. So. Yeah, actually, this is the passion or madness. It's not yet, actually, it's become any professional anything, because still now I cannot pay any honorarium to any writer. So, yeah, that's why actually I continuing my work.
And as for you, you will soon move from Namibia, which is ranked as one of the best countries in Africa when it comes to press freedom.
Number two.
Number 2 after Ghana. To Congo, where the conditions are worse. What will be on top of your lists? Where to start?
Okay, I know exactly the situation in Congo, DRC, because the Congo Brazzaville and Congo DRC, Kinshasa. I'm going to Kinshasa, appointed by the DG, starting on the 3rd of December. I think that we need there to have a strong trade union of journalists first. And I'm counting on it with, the International Federation of Journalists and the FAJ in Dakar to come and help me, because we need to do that first. Secondly, the national communication policy is a request from the government. We need to make sure that we have a national communication policy, and the media law reformed, because we need to have new law. And I hope that the election on the 23rd of December will be smooth without fighting. And after that, we'll have a new government, a democratic one, and then we can work with them in implementing all those issues. And also the School of Journalism, we need to review the curricula, to make sure that we are having 3 years of good curriculum of training of journalists, including technical issues, but most ethics and rule of conduct. This is very important for us.
And then we will have 10 minutes for questions from the audience.
3 to 5 minutes.
Vem tar den?
There's a person asking for vote.
Vi tränger bara mikrofon.
Hello, Ane Tusvik-Bonde from the Human Rights House Foundation. Thank you for an interesting discussion. I have a question to Jean-Pierre. Thank you for mentioning the importance of the civil society and how you work with them. But I have a question concerning the work of UNESCO and accountability of your goodwill ambassadors. Have you discussed internally the criteria for how you appoint these goodwill ambassadors? I'm asking because the vice president and the wife of the president in Azerbaijan, Meriban Aliyeva, she's one of the goodwill ambassadors. And at the same time, this regime is responsible for all the all the detentions of journalists, and they are on the really bottom of the list we saw and the matrix. So how can UNESCO internally do more to actually make sure that you don't glorify persons who are really responsible for the harassment and attacks against journalists?
It's a tricky and difficult question, no? Me, I'm at the grassroots level. I'm a technician. Those issues of appointing the goodwill ambassador is a political issue, according to me. But I will bring it to the attention of Guy Berger, who is our Director of Freedom of Expression and Media Development, the South African guy in Paris, for them to see if they can revise the criteria, because it's a contradiction to have a goodwill ambassador who is also hammering the press freedom and the journalists. I agree with you, and it's an issue that I'm going to bring to their attention. But at my level, it's difficult for me to change it, even if I agree with you. That's personally, not UNESCO, not Jean-Pierre.
Hi, I'm Mallika Aryal. I'm from Nepal, journalist. My question is to Ahmedur. First of all, I think you are absolutely brave, and the way you talked about Chaidul, he's a mentor to all of us in South Asia. So it's unfortunate that there is a situation where you said something about how the government or the extremists, they both do not tolerate free thinking, and they probably feed off of each other. So my question is, I kind of wanted to focus on that. So it doesn't seem like the government is so interested in holding anybody accountable. What has the response been internationally to the kind of attacks on free thinkers, bloggers, journalists? What kind of outrage has there been? What kind of accountability has the international community actually, asked of the government on this?
Thank you. Our head of state, Prime Minister, told many times, so what? That means recently one of the renowned photographer, his name is Shahidul Alam, and he is now in jail, and he was arrested in the 5th of August. So for him, for his bail, the big international community actually gave a statement. Also, the 10 Nobel laureates gave a statement. So some journalist asked to our Prime Minister, so 10 Nobel laureates gave a statement for Shahidul's free bail. So what do you think? Our Prime Minister said, so what? So actually, I cannot explain more for government policy. I was attacked 2015's 31st October. So after 3 days, for many purposes, our Prime Minister arranged a press conference in her government house. So some journalists tried to ask about this kind of killing, because that day another publisher was killed and another 2 writers was also injured. So Prime Minister told very clearly, we don't have any responsibility for atheist writer or anybody. So this is actually the very clear-cut situation in Bangladesh, the politicians or governments or head of states. So actually, I don't have actually, I cannot explain this statement or this mentalities. I don't know why.
We have time for one more question.
Thank you very much. Jean-Pierre, it's a question to you. My name is Jesper Højberg, and I'm, by the way, from International Media Support, heading International Media Support. I think it's very positive. Your presentation gives me a lot of hope. I think now, 6 years after the passing of the UN Action Plan on safety of journalists and the issue of impunity, I think UNESCO and the UN system is coming around to giving the establishment of national safety mechanism high priority. I know at the last year's review of the UN Action Plan, it was decided to set up focal points within the UN, broadly within the UN system, other UN agencies, because I think one thing is what UNESCO can do. I know, we all know that UNESCO is not enormously resourced, but you need the support and commitment. I think the failure since 2012 of other UN agencies, I would accept the Human Rights Council. I think there has not been support enough, and the review meetings around the UN Action Plan have shown very little commitment from other, yes, in words, but not in deeds. How will you ensure also now that you are getting so specific about this, both with the African Union and you know, with your outline of actors that needs to be involved? How will you ensure that the other agencies can be showing deeds, not just nice words?
Okay, we are lucky to have Guterres as Secretary General, coming from the field, coming from humanitarian field also. He has engaged a reform. The UN reform has been engaged by him now. From the 1st January 2019, we'll have the resident coordinator office independent completely from UNDP, completely, and it will be also in charge of big issues like this question of safety of journalists. It's why I think that his vision will be to have one big UN, no more flagships, UNESCO, UNFPA, UNICEF, but specialized, let's say, staff tackling all those issues. And this is a big reform because I think that by 2020, normally the reform might be starting. But next year, we'll have in January the RC, Resident Coordinator, independent from the UNDP, and also dedicated to some challenges and big issues like this issue. It's why I am also optimistic that we can really implement it. And this mechanism, national mechanism, is part of the UN Plan of Action. If you can start there, having also the African Union and the regional economic communities, I'm sure that it will be possible. But you are right, as a former UN staff, you know exactly the problem that you have, and I'm happy to know that, yeah, we are lucky to have Guterres as SG, and Guterres to make sure that we can have everybody supporting our big issues and challenges. Thank you.
And thank you so much to both of you.
Okay, thank you to the panel. A 30 minutes break now, and we start again at 12:30.